My wife's boss slipped me an envelope at the company's party. Don't open this here. Go home. Pack a bag. I looked confused. He whispered, you have 24 hours. When I opened it, my name's Aaron Blake, and I'm about to tell you the story of how a company party turned my life into a bargain bin thriller novel that nobody asked for. I'm 33 years old, married to a woman way out of my league, and I spend most of my days fixing broken toilets and pretending I know the difference between a Phillips head and a flathead screwdriver. I'm a handyman by trade, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm the guy you call when your sink explodes and you can't afford a real plumber. But that night, I wasn't fixing anything. I was doing something far more dangerous, attending my wife's company party. Tara worked for Stratton Financial, one of those bougie investment firms where everyone wore suits so tight you could practically see their stock portfolios through the fabric. These people traded in millions before breakfast and acted like a bad quarter was equivalent to a national tragedy. I'm talking about the kind of place where they served $8 coffee in the break room and everyone pretended to enjoy it. Tara loved it there, though. She was good at what she did, crunching numbers, managing portfolios, making rich people richer. Me? I was just the guy who showed up to these events for the free champagne and those fancy little shrimp skewers that make you feel like royalty for exactly 4 seconds. The gala was held at some overpriced hotel ballroom downtown, the kind with chandeliers that probably cost more than my entire childhood. Everything was dripping in gold and glass, and that specific brand of corporate elegance that screams, we have money and we want you to know it. I walked in wearing the one suit I owned, the same one I wore to our wedding, our anniversary dinner, and that time I had to appear in small claims court over a fence dispute with my neighbor. It still fit, barely, and it smelled faintly of mothballs and regret. The moment we stepped inside, Tara transformed. She went from my goofy, pizza-loving wife to corporate Tara, the version of her that laughed at jokes that weren't funny and complimented people's ties like they'd just won a Pulitzer. I got it. This was her world, and I was just the plus one who kept eyeing the appetizer table like a hawk circling roadkill. I grabbed a glass of champagne from one of those waiters who glide around like they're auditioning for a ballet. You know the type. Emotionless, efficient, silently judging how many bacon-wrapped dates you stuff in your face. I locked eyes with one of them as I grabbed my third shrimp skewer, and I swear he looked at me like I'd just kicked a puppy. Sorry, buddy, but this is what I came here for. The company didn't pay me to be here, so I'm getting my money's worth in crustaceans. The party itself was exactly what you'd expect. Boring speeches from guys in expensive suits talking about quarterly earnings and fiscal responsibility like they were reciting Shakespeare. Everyone clapped at the appropriate times, laughed at jokes that weren't jokes, and sipped their drinks with the kind of fake enthusiasm that makes you wonder if they're all robots. There was a raffle at some point, and I'm pretty sure nobody actually cared about winning a weekend getaway to some resort in the Bahamas because everyone in that room could probably just buy the Bahamas if they felt like it. I spent most of the evening standing awkwardly by the bar, nodding politely at Tara's co-workers who introduced themselves with names I immediately forgot. There was a Chad, or maybe a Brad, who worked in acquisitions and wouldn't shut up about his new Tesla. There was a woman named Simone who asked me what I did for a living, and when I said handyman, she smiled in that patronizing way people do when they're trying to figure out how you could possibly afford to breathe the same air as them. I told her I specialized in unclogging the toilets of the rich and emotionally unavailable, and she laughed like I'd just told her a riddle. I wasn't joking. Everything was painfully, brutally normal, right up until it wasn't. I was reaching for what I'd mentally labeled as my victory shrimp, the one that would push me over the edge from satisfied to uncomfortably full, when I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around, expecting Tara or maybe another waiter coming to judge my life choices, but instead I found myself face to face with Rowan Hargrove, Tara's boss. Now, Rowan was the kind of guy who looked like he'd been assembled in a factory that specialized in making villains for corporate thrillers. Tall, silver-haired, with a jawline that could cut glass and a stare that made you feel like you owed him money even if you'd never met him before. He was always stone-faced, the kind of man who probably said good morning like it was a threat and have a nice day, like he was planning your funeral. Tara had told me stories about him, how he never smiled, never joked, never did anything that suggested he was a human being with actual emotions. He was respected, feared, and possibly manufactured in a lab somewhere in Switzerland. But that night, Rowan Hargrove looked scared. Not just worried or concerned. I mean genuinely, bone-deep terrified. His eyes kept darting around the room like he was expecting someone to jump out from behind the ice sculpture. His hand was shaking slightly as he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope. It was thick, cream-colored, and had my name written on it in handwriting that looked way too elegant for anything good. He leaned in close, so close I could smell his cologne, something expensive that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, and whispered, "Don't open this here. Go home. Pack a bag. You have 24 hours." I blinked at him like he'd just told me to build a spaceship out of shrimp skewers. My brain was doing that thing where it tries to process information but keeps getting error messages. I said, because apparently that's what my vocabulary had been reduced to. Is this about the shrimp? Because I only took 3, okay, maybe 5, but he didn't smile. He didn't explain. He just pressed the envelope into my hand, gave me one last look that said, "I'm sorry," without actually saying it, and then turned and walked away. Just like that. Gone. Disappeared into the crowd of suits and fake laughter like he'd never been there at all. I stood there, holding the envelope, my victory shrimp forgotten on the nearest table. My heart was doing this weird stuttering thing, and my hands felt cold despite the warmth of the room. I looked around, half expecting someone to jump out and yell, "Gotcha," or for Ashton Kutcher to pop up and tell me I was being punked. But no, just the party, just the music, just me, standing there like an idiot, holding an envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. That's when I realized something that made my stomach drop faster than a broken elevator. Either I was being recruited by the CIA for some reason that made absolutely no sense, or I was about to become the star of one of those bad crime documentaries where they interview your neighbors, and everyone says, "He seems so normal." Spoiler alert, it was neither. It was so much worse. I left that party faster than a dad abandoning a conversation about cryptocurrency, which meant I bailed before dessert. And let me tell you, leaving before dessert is the only actual crime I committed that night. The dessert table had been calling my name from across the ballroom all evening. I'd seen the chocolate mousse cups, the miniature cheesecakes, those little pastry things that look like edible clouds. But no, instead of indulging in sugar-induced happiness like a normal person, I was speed walking through the hotel lobby, clutching a mysterious envelope like I'd just stolen classified documents from a Bond villain. Tara stayed behind, obviously. She was too busy networking with her colleagues. You know, those people who laugh like hyenas over bonus checks and discuss market trends like they're talking about the weather. I tried to catch her eye on my way out, attempted some kind of "we need to leave right now" telepathic message, but she was deep in conversation with Simone and some guy whose name was probably Hunter or Bryce or something equally trust fund adjacent. So I did what any rational husband would do when handed a cryptic warning by his wife's terrifying boss. I lied. I pointed at my stomach, mouthed "food poisoning," and made my escape while she gave me that sympathetic wife nod that said, "Go home, you delicate baby, I'll be back later." The Uber ride home was torture. Not because of traffic or because my driver was blasting music that sounded like robots having a fist fight, but because the envelope was burning a hole in my jacket pocket. I kept touching it, making sure it was real, wondering if I'd somehow hallucinated the entire interaction with Rowan. Maybe I'd had too much champagne. Maybe that third shrimp skewer had been bad, and I was currently experiencing some kind of shellfish-induced psychosis. That seemed more plausible than my wife's boss randomly giving me spy movie instructions at a corporate gala. When I finally got home to our apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in a building that had character, which is realtor speak for old and kind of falling apart, I headed straight for the kitchen. I placed the envelope on the counter like it was a live bomb, then backed away slowly, as if distance would somehow make it less terrifying. Our kitchen was small, the kind where you could cook, do dishes, and answer the door without taking more than 3 steps. The fluorescent light above the sink flickered like it always did, casting weird shadows across the cream-colored paper. I stared at that envelope for what felt like 17 years, but was probably more like 5 minutes. It just sat there, mocking me with its perfect handwriting and expensive paper stock. My name, Aaron Blake, was written in this elegant cursive that looked like it had been penned by someone who'd majored in intimidating calligraphy at Harvard. "Okay," I said out loud to my empty apartment. Because talking to yourself is totally normal when you're having a mental breakdown. It's probably nothing. Maybe it's a bonus check. Maybe Rowan's secretly Santa Claus, and this is my Christmas gift 9 months early. Maybe. I was stalling. I knew I was stalling. The rational part of my brain, the part that had gotten me through high school algebra and parallel parking, was screaming at me to just open the damn thing. But the other part, the part that had watched way too many crime documentaries at 2 in the morning, was convinced that opening this envelope would somehow trigger a series of events that would end with me in witness protection, eating gas station sandwiches in Nebraska for the rest of my life. Finally, after giving myself a pep talk that would have made a motivational speaker cringe, I grabbed the envelope and tore it open. My hands were shaking so bad I nearly dropped the whole thing. 3 items fell out onto the counter, each one more concerning than the last. First, a plane ticket. Not just any plane ticket. A one-way ticket to Durango, Colorado, departing tomorrow morning at 6:15 a.m. One way. As in, no return flight. As in, pack your bags and don't plan on coming back. The ticket was under my name, purchased 2 days ago according to the confirmation number, which was impossible because I definitely hadn't bought it. I'd never even been to Colorado. The closest I'd come to mountain living was that time I hiked a moderately steep hill at a state park and had to sit down for 20 minutes afterward. Second, a burner phone. I'm talking about one of those cheap flip phones that drug dealers use in movies, the kind you buy at a gas station with cash and throw away after one conversation. It was silver, scratched, and when I flipped it open, there was exactly one number saved in the contacts. Just one. The contact name? Call only this. Not exactly subtle. Not exactly comforting, either. Third, and this is where things went from weird and concerning to absolutely pants-sweatingly terrifying. A photograph. It was a candid shot, slightly grainy like it had been taken from a distance with a zoom lens. The subject of the photo? My wife, Tara. She was leaving our apartment building, wearing the outfit she'd worn that morning. Dark jeans, her favorite gray cardigan, the purse I'd bought her for her birthday. She was mid-stride, probably heading to catch the train to work, completely unaware that someone was photographing her. I hadn't taken that photo. I'd been asleep when she left for work that morning, drooling on my pillow and dreaming about something that probably involved food, which meant someone else had taken it. Someone had been watching our apartment. Someone had been watching my wife. My blood turned to ice water. That's not a metaphor. I literally felt cold, like someone had dumped a bucket of frozen dread directly into my veins. Underneath the photo was a note, typed on plain white paper, the kind that could have come from literally any printer in the world. The message was short, direct, and about as comforting as a cancer diagnosis. They know what she saw. Do exactly as instructed. If you're still in Chicago after midnight, they'll come for you both. I read it 3 times, hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something less horrifying. Maybe it would turn into just kidding, this is a prank, or congratulations, you've won a free vacation. But no, the words stayed exactly the same, each one landing like a punch to the gut. They know what she saw. What had Tara seen? She worked in finance, for crying out loud. The most exciting thing that happened at her office was probably someone bringing in good donuts on Friday. What could she have possibly witnessed that would warrant mysterious envelopes and threats and creepy surveillance photos? Do exactly as instructed. The instructions being, get on a plane to Colorado tomorrow morning and apparently never come back. Cool, totally normal request. Nothing suspicious about that at all. If you're still in Chicago after midnight, they'll come for you both. Midnight. I glanced at the microwave clock, 10:47 p.m. That gave me just over an hour to figure out what the hell was happening, pack our lives into suitcases, and convince my wife that we needed to flee the city based on a cryptic note from her boss, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. I sat down at our tiny kitchen table, still holding the note, the photo, the phone, and the ticket. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. Our cat, Mr. Whiskers, a fat orange tabby who'd been napping on the couch, wandered in and meowed at me like I was being dramatic. Easy for him to say. Nobody was threatening to come after him before midnight. I sat there in that flickering kitchen light, surrounded by evidence that my boring, normal life had just taken a hard left turn into crazy town, and I thought, okay, so clearly this isn't about the shrimp. This was about something so much worse. And I had 73 minutes to figure out what. I spent the next 45 minutes doing what any rational person would do in this situation. Absolutely losing my mind. I paced around our apartment like a caged animal at a really depressing zoo, holding that burner phone like it might suddenly explode in my hand. I kept picking up the note, reading it again, hoping maybe I'd misunderstood something fundamental, like perhaps "they'll come for you both" was actually code for surprise pizza delivery, or something equally non-threatening. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Mr. Whiskers followed me around for the first 10 minutes of my panic spiral, probably thinking it was some new weird game. But eventually even he got bored and went back to his favorite spot on the couch. Thanks for the support, buddy. Really feeling the loyalty here. I tried calling Tara about 17 times, but every call went straight to voicemail. She always put her phone on silent during these work events, said it was unprofessional to be checking your phone while networking. Great. Wonderful. My wife was out there being professional while I was at home having a full-blown existential crisis in my underwear. Yeah, I'd changed out of my suit the second I got home, because there was no way I was having a breakdown in formal wear. At 11:34 p.m., I finally heard keys jingling at the front door. I'd been sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope contents like they were going to suddenly make sense if I just looked at them hard enough. When Tara walked in, I tried to play it cool. You know, like any husband would when casually hiding the fact that he's holding evidence suggesting they're both about to be murdered by mysterious forces. She looked exhausted, that specific kind of tired you get from smiling too much at people you don't actually like. Her heels were in her hand. She always took them off in the hallway because walking up 3 flights of stairs in stilettos was, according to her, a form of medieval torture that men invented to punish women for having the audacity to exist. Her makeup was slightly smudged, and her hair had that end-of-the-night messiness that somehow made her look even prettier, which was extremely unfair given the circumstances. "Hey," she said, dropping her purse on the counter. "You okay? You looked like you were dying when you left." "Yeah," I replied, my voice doing this weird squeaky thing that definitely didn't scream, "Everything is normal. Long night. Your boss. Rowan. He told me to pack a bag. Should I bring sunscreen or a bulletproof vest?" I was going for humor, trying to ease into the whole, "we might be in mortal danger" conversation gently. You can't just hit someone with that information cold turkey. You've got to warm them up first, like you're defrosting a chicken. She didn't laugh, not even a pity chuckle. Instead, she went completely still, her hand frozen halfway to the refrigerator door. "What did you just say?" "Your boss, Rowan, he." "I heard what you said." She turned to look at me, and her face had gone pale. Like ghost pale. Like someone had literally drained the color from her skin using some kind of cosmic dimmer switch. "When did he tell you this?" "At the party. Right before I left. He gave me this." I gestured to the envelope contents spread across the table like the world's most disturbing scavenger hunt. Tara walked over slowly, like she was approaching a crime scene. She picked up the photo of herself, and I watched her hands start to shake. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Oh my God, Aaron, this is..." "Yeah, I know. Creepy as hell. Who took this? Why do they have a picture of you? What did you see?" The questions tumbled out of me like water from a broken faucet. "Tara, what the hell is going on? Why does your boss think we need to leave Chicago before midnight?" She set the photo down and pressed both hands against her face. For a horrible second, I thought she was going to cry, but when she pulled her hands away, she just looked scared. Really, truly scared. I'd seen Tara scared before. That time we thought the apartment was being broken into, but it was just a raccoon in the garbage chute, or when she thought she'd missed a decimal point on a multi-million-dollar transaction. But this was different. This was primal. "I can't," she started then. Stopped. "I don't know if I should tell you." "Are you kidding me right now?" My voice came out louder than I intended, echoing in our tiny kitchen. "Someone is watching us. We have mysterious plane tickets to Colorado. There's a note here that literally says they'll come for you." I think we're way past the point of keeping secrets, Tara. We argued. God, did we argue? It was one of those fights where you're not really mad at each other, but you're both terrified, and that terror is coming out as anger, because anger feels safer than fear. She kept saying she didn't want to drag me into it, whatever it was. I kept saying she'd already dragged me into it by being my wife and apparently witnessing something that had pissed off the wrong people. 3 weeks ago, she finally said, sitting down at the table and looking at her hands. I was working late, finishing up some reports. Everyone else had gone home. I needed to print something from Rowan's office. He'd given me his access code for the printer because ours was broken. When I went in there, his computer was still on. He'd forgotten to lock it. Okay, I said slowly. And there was an email open on his screen. I didn't mean to read it, but it was right there, and the subject line said, Urgent, Transfer Confirmation. I thought it was work stuff, something he'd want me to know about. She was talking faster now, the words rushing out like she'd been holding them in for weeks. But it wasn't work stuff, Aaron. It was bank account numbers. Offshore accounts. Names I recognized. Politicians, CEOs, people who are on the news. And amounts. Huge amounts. Millions and millions of dollars moving through our firm to accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, places like that. My stomach dropped somewhere around my ankles. Money laundering. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. She looked up at me with tears in her eyes. I took a photo of the screen with my phone. I don't know why. I panicked. I thought maybe I should have proof, in case something happened. Then I heard footsteps in the hallway, and I ran out. The next day, Rowan called me into his office. He looked terrified, Aaron. He told me to delete the photo, to forget what I'd seen, to act like nothing happened. He said people were watching the firm, watching him, and that I'd made myself a target by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Before I could respond, before I could process what she'd just told me, I noticed something that made my blood freeze. Movement outside our window. Our apartment was on the 3rd floor, facing the street, and we had a pretty clear view of the parking lot below. And there, sitting in the darkness with its engine off and no headlights, was a black SUV. Just sitting there, waiting, like a predator watching its prey. Tara, I said quietly, pointing at the window. Please tell me that's just a normal car owned by a normal person who happens to park like a stalker. She stood up and looked out the window. All the color that had returned to her face immediately drained away again. That wasn't there when I came home. We both stood there, frozen, watching the SUV, watching it watch us. The windows were tinted so dark we couldn't see inside, couldn't see who was sitting in there, couldn't see how many people there were, or what they were planning, or when they'd make their move. They're watching, Tara whispered. That's when it hit me, like a freight train made of pure terror slamming directly into my chest, that this wasn't paranoia. This wasn't some elaborate prank. This wasn't a misunderstanding that we could clear up with a phone call or a reasonable conversation. Someone was actually hunting us, actually watching us, actually planning to do what? I didn't know. And honestly, I didn't want to find out. I checked the microwave clock, 11:52 p.m. 8 minutes until midnight. We need to leave, I said. Right now. If you've never tried packing for a mysterious life or death escape with less than 8 minutes on the clock, let me paint you a picture. It's absolute chaos wrapped in panic, seasoned with poor decision-making, and served with a side of, what the hell am I doing with my life? It's like one of those game shows where contestants have to grab as much stuff as possible before time runs out, except instead of winning a jet ski, the prize is not getting murdered by mysterious SUV people. Tara ran to the bedroom while I stood there for approximately 3 seconds having what I can only describe as a full system crash. My brain just stopped working. I stared at the black SUV outside, then at the clock, 11:53 p.m. now, then back at the SUV, like I was watching the world's most stressful tennis match. Finally, my survival instincts kicked in, probably the same instincts that kept my ancestors from being eaten by saber-toothed tigers, and I bolted after Tara. Our bedroom looked like a tornado had run through it, which was just its normal state of existence. But now Tara was adding to the chaos by throwing open drawers and grabbing random clothing items like she was competing in an Olympic sport I'd never heard of. She had one of those big duffel bags, the kind people take to the gym when they're way more organized than normal humans, and she was stuffing it with jeans, shirts, underwear, socks, and what looked like every single toiletry we owned. Do I need fancy clothes? She asked frantically, holding up a cocktail dress. What if we have to go to another party? What if, Tara, we're running from people who want to kill us, not attending a wedding, I said, yanking open my own drawer. Leave the cocktail dress. Bring comfortable pants and shoes you can run in. Right. Running clothes. Got it. She threw the dress on the floor and grabbed her sneakers instead, the good ones she'd bought for the gym membership, she'd used exactly twice before deciding exercise was society's way of punishing people for enjoying carbs. I, meanwhile, was having my own crisis about what to pack. Clothes, obviously. I grabbed jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, basically my entire wardrobe, which wasn't saying much since I owned approximately 7 shirts and rotated through them like I was running a very boring fashion show. But then my brain started spiraling into all the other things we might need. Toothbrush? Definitely. Phone chargers? Absolutely essential, because what's the point of staying alive if your phone dies and you can't doom scroll through social media? Snacks? Listen, I don't know where we were going or what we'd find when we got there, but I wasn't about to face the apocalypse on an empty stomach. I ran to the kitchen and started grabbing everything that looked portable and edible. Granola bars, a box of crackers, 3 bags of beef jerky, a jar of peanut butter, because protein, and a family-sized bag of Doritos that I'd been saving for a special occasion. If fleeing for your life doesn't count as a special occasion, I don't know what does. Aaron, what are you doing? Tara appeared in the doorway, her duffel bag bulging like it had swallowed a small planet. Packing snacks, I said defensively, shoving a package of Oreos into my backpack. We need survival supplies. We're going to Colorado, not the Hunger Games. You don't know that. What if we have to hide in the mountains? What if? I stopped mid-sentence because the burner phone, which I'd shoved in my pocket, started buzzing. Not ringing, buzzing, like someone was texting it. I pulled it out with shaking hands. The screen, which was about as advanced as technology from 2005, showed a single text message from that one saved number. The message was short, direct, and absolutely terrifying in its calmness. Leave through the back. Do not call anyone. You're being watched. I showed it to Tara. She read it, went pale. Again, she was really getting a workout in the being pale with terror department tonight, and whispered, "How do they know we're still here? How do they know we haven't already left? Because they're watching us." I gestured wildly toward the living room, toward that window with its perfect view of the stalker SUV. They probably have binoculars, or drones, or X-ray vision for all I know. These people are clearly way more organized than we are. We stood there in the kitchen, both holding our bags, both breathing hard like we'd just run a marathon. Mr. Whiskers chose that exact moment to meander in and meow at us, probably wondering why his servants were acting like lunatics instead of feeding him his midnight snack. "The cat," Tara said suddenly. "We can't just leave Mr. Whiskers. Tara, we don't have time to. I'm not abandoning our cat, Aaron." Her voice cracked, and I realized she was on the verge of completely losing it. The cat wasn't really about the cat. The cat was about control, about normalcy, about having one thing in this nightmare that made sense. "Okay," I said, trying to sound calm even though I felt like my heart was trying to escape through my throat. "Okay, we'll bring the cat. Where's his carrier?" "Hall closet." I actually ran, like I was training for a track meet I'd never signed up for, to the hall closet and grabbed Mr. Whiskers' carrier, the one we used for vet visits that he absolutely hated. Then came the fun part. Catching a cat who suddenly decided he was an Olympic sprinter. Mr. Whiskers, sensing that something was wrong, bolted under the couch. It took both of us, crawling on the floor like idiots, to finally corner him and shove him into the carrier. He yowled like we'd personally betrayed him, which, fair enough, we kind of had. "Back door," I said, slinging my backpack over one shoulder and grabbing the cat carrier. We go out the back, down the fire escape, and what? Where do we go? We can't just wander the streets at midnight with luggage and a screaming cat. She had a point. I looked at the plane ticket still sitting on the kitchen counter, that one-way ticket to Durango, departing at 6:15 a.m. We get to O'Hare. We get on that plane. That's what the instructions said. You're trusting the instructions from mysterious people who are stalking us. You got any better ideas? I shot back. Because I'm fresh out, and I checked the microwave clock. 4 minutes until midnight and whatever that deadline actually means. Tara grabbed the envelope with all its contents, shoving it into her bag. Fine. Back door. Fire escape. Airport. This is insane. Yeah, well, welcome to Monday night, I muttered. We crept toward the back door of our apartment like we were in some kind of budget action movie. Except instead of looking cool, we probably looked like 2 idiots who'd never done anything more dangerous than jaywalk. Every sound made my heart jump. The building settling, a neighbor's TV through the wall, Mr. Whiskers's continued protests from inside his carrier. The back door led to a narrow hallway, and then to the building's fire escape, which I'd never actually used because I wasn't particularly excited about climbing down rusty metal stairs attached to a 100-year-old building. I slowly turned the deadbolt, wincing at every tiny click and scrape. The door opened with a creak that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. Cool night air hit my face, carrying the smell of garbage from the dumpsters below and that specific Chicago scent of car exhaust mixed with whatever the restaurant 2 buildings over was cooking. The fire escape was exactly as sketchy as I remembered from the one time I'd stuck my head out to see if it was a viable emergency exit. Spoiler: it absolutely wasn't. But here we were anyway, about to trust our lives to rust and questionable structural integrity. "You first," Tara whispered. "Why do I have to go first?" "Because if it collapses, I want to know before I step on it." That's so romantic. Really feeling the love here. But I went first anyway, because that's what husbands do apparently. Test dangerous fire escapes while carrying a backpack full of Doritos and a cat who wanted us dead. The metal groaned under my weight, which was super comforting. Each step down felt like it might be my last, and not because of the mysterious people hunting us, but because I was going to plummet 3 stories into a pile of garbage bags. Tara followed, somehow managing to climb down in the dark while carrying a duffel bag that weighed approximately as much as a small car. When we finally reached the alley below, both of us alive, somehow, we pressed ourselves against the wall and tried to control our breathing. "Now what?" Tara whispered. I looked at my watch, 11:59 p.m. Now we run. Turns out, running through Chicago at midnight while carrying luggage, a cat, and your dignity is harder than it looks in movies. We made it approximately 2 blocks before I was wheezing like a 70-year-old chain smoker, and Tara's duffel bag had whacked me in the shins so many times I was pretty sure I'd have bruises shaped like her poor packing choices. We caught a cab, driven by a guy named Eddie who asked absolutely 0 questions about why 2 people and an angry cat needed to get to O'Hare at midnight, which made him either the most professional driver in Chicago or someone who'd seen way weirder stuff on the night shift. I'm guessing the latter. The whole ride there, I kept checking behind us, expecting to see that black SUV following us, but the streets stayed blissfully normal. Just regular late-night traffic, drunk people stumbling out of bars, the usual urban chaos that suddenly felt incredibly comforting. The airport was a special kind of purgatory. Security at midnight is staffed by TSA agents who look like they've lost all faith in humanity, and honestly, I couldn't blame them after they had to inspect my backpack full of junk food. The guy running the X-ray machine actually stopped the belt, squinted at his screen, and said, "Sir, is that an entire jar of peanut butter?" "Emergency protein," I replied, because apparently that's what sleep deprivation does to your brain. Turns you into someone who thinks that's a normal thing to say. He waved me through, probably deciding I wasn't worth the paperwork. The flight itself was a blur. One of those regional jets that feels like it's held together with duct tape and prayers, packed with business travelers who'd clearly made terrible life choices that led them to a 6:15 a.m. flight to Colorado. Tara and I didn't talk much. We just sat there, Mr. Whiskers wedged under the seat in front of us, still pissed about being kidnapped from his comfortable life, while I tried not to think about the fact that we'd just abandoned everything we knew based on a cryptic note and a creepy surveillance photo. Somewhere over the Midwest, as the sun started painting the clouds orange and pink like the world's most beautiful, "Everything is terrible" painting, Tara grabbed my hand. Her palm was sweaty. So was mine. We looked at each other, and I could see she was thinking the same thing I was. What the hell have we gotten ourselves into? Durango was beautiful, if you could ignore the part where we might die there. The airport was tiny, the kind of place where you walk directly from the plane onto the tarmac like you're in a 1950s movie about aviation. Mountains surrounded us on all sides, huge and imposing and covered in that perfect Colorado mix of green forest and gray rock. The air smelled clean, too clean, like it had never heard of pollution or Chicago's delightful combination of hot dog stands and exhaust fumes. Inside the airport, which was basically one room with a baggage claim and a coffee shop, I pulled out the burner phone. My hands were shaking again, from exhaustion or fear or probably both. Tara stood next to me, her arms crossed, her eyes darting around like she expected hitmen to burst through the doors at any second. I dialed the only number saved in the phone. It rang twice, each ring lasting approximately 17 years before someone picked up. Mr. Blake. The voice was male, deep, with that specific gruffness that suggested this person had gargled gravel for breakfast. Not a question, a statement, like he'd been expecting my call, which, okay, fair enough, he probably had been. Yeah, that's me, I said, because apparently I'd forgotten how to have a normal conversation. So we're here, in Durango, at the airport, with a cat. What now? Walk outside. Main entrance. A black pickup truck will stop. Get in. Don't talk to anyone. Don't use your regular phone. Don't do anything that isn't getting in that truck. Cool, cool, very specific instructions. Love the whole mysterious stranger vibe you've got going. Do you also have a catchphrase? Maybe a theme song? There was a pause, the kind that suggested this person was deciding whether I was being brave or stupid. Probably stupid. Mr. Blake, I understand you're scared. But if you want to stay alive, you'll do exactly what I say. Understood. The humor drained out of me like water from a bathtub. Understood. The line went dead. I looked at Tara. You hear that? They even gave me Uber instructions of doom. This is insane, she whispered. Aaron, we're just trusting random people now? We don't know who that was. We don't know where they're taking us. Yeah, but we also don't know who was in that SUV outside our apartment, and I'm pretty sure those people weren't planning to take us for ice cream. I grabbed her hand. We're already in this. We're already here. Might as well see it through. Outside, the morning sun was still low on the horizon, turning everything golden and beautiful in that way that felt completely inappropriate for our current situation. We stood on the curb with our bags, our cat, and our rapidly deteriorating sanity. A few other passengers from our flight walked past, climbing into rental cars or being picked up by friends. Normal people, doing normal things. Must be nice. Then, right on cue, like this whole thing was being directed by someone with a flair for dramatic timing, a black pickup truck pulled up. Not a new one. Either, this thing looked like it had seen some stuff. Dents in the bumper, scratches along the sides. The kind of vehicle that had lived a full life and had stories to tell, probably none of them good. The driver's side window rolled down, and I got my first look at the man who was either going to save our lives or murder us in the mountains. Hard to tell which at this point. He was in his 40s, maybe early 50s, with the kind of weathered face that suggested he'd spent significant time outdoors doing things that normal people don't do. Think less weekend camping trip, and more survived alone in the wilderness using only a knife and spite. He had gray-streaked dark hair, a jaw that looked like it could crack walnuts, and eyes that had probably seen things that would make lesser men cry. He was wearing a flannel shirt, because of course he was. This was Colorado, and he looked at us with the expression of someone who'd fought both wars and bears and wasn't particularly impressed by either. Get in, he said flatly. No introduction. No. Hello. Nice to meet you. Sorry about the whole fleeing for your lives situation. I looked at Tara. She looked at me. Mr. Whiskers yowled from his carrier. He seems fun, I muttered, opening the back door and shoving our bags in. We climbed into the truck, me in the front passenger seat, Tara in the back with the cat. And immediately I was hit with that specific pickup truck smell of leather, coffee, and something that might have been gun oil. The cab was clean but worn, with a police scanner mounted on the dashboard, and what looked like a tactical bag shoved under my seat. The man didn't say anything, just put the truck in gear and pulled away from the airport, heading toward the mountains that loomed in the distance like they were judging us for our life choices. We drove for maybe 15 minutes in complete silence. Well, not complete. Mr. Whiskers kept making these pitiful sounds that suggested he was filing a formal complaint with cat management, but nobody spoke. The driver kept his eyes on the road, occasionally checking his mirrors like he was expecting to be followed. The roads got narrower and windier as we climbed into the mountains, leaving civilization behind with every mile. Finally, when I couldn't take the silence anymore and my anxiety was reaching levels that probably required prescription medication, I said, "So, you gonna tell us your name, or should I just keep calling you Mysterious Mountain Man in my head?" He glanced at me, something that might have been amusement flickering across his face. "Daniel Cross. Aaron Blake. This is my wife Tara. The angry cat is Mr. Whiskers. I know who you are, right? Because this isn't creepy at all." Daniel took a sharp turn onto an even narrower road, This one barely paved, more dirt and gravel than actual asphalt. Trees pressed in on both sides, creating a tunnel of green and shadow. Your wife's boss, Rowan Hargrove. He used to be my partner. Federal Task Force, Financial Crimes Division. 3 years ago, we uncovered a criminal network using investment firms to launder money. Billions of dollars moving through legitimate companies, funding everything from drug cartels to human trafficking to political corruption. My stomach dropped. Tara leaned forward from the back seat, her voice barely above a whisper. Rowan was a federal agent? Was. Past tense. Daniel's jaw tightened. When we got close to exposing the whole operation, people started dying. Witnesses disappeared. Evidence vanished. Someone inside the task force was feeding information to the network, telling them exactly what we knew and who was talking. Rowan and I realized we couldn't trust anyone in the system. So we went dark, tried to gather evidence on our own. What happened? I asked, though part of me really didn't want to know. They got to me first. Ambushed me, nearly killed me. Sent a message. Back off or everyone you love dies. So I did. I backed off, resigned, moved out here, tried to disappear. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something human in those eyes. Fear. But Rowan didn't. He took a job at Stratton Financial because he suspected they were part of the network. He was trying to gather evidence from the inside. And I walked in on that evidence, Tara said softly from the back seat. You walked in on proof that would bring down senators, CEOs, people so powerful they think they're untouchable. When Rowan found out you'd seen those files, he knew you were marked. Both of you. The truck hit a pothole, jolting us. Trees blurred past the window. So, I said, trying to process information that felt like it belonged in a movie and not my actual life. Not about the shrimp skewers then? Daniel looked at me like I'd just spoken in a foreign language. Never mind. Bad joke. Coping mechanism. You're gonna need better coping mechanisms where we're going. Great. Just great. Daniel drove us deeper into the mountains, and by deeper, I mean we went so far into the wilderness that cell phone service became a distant memory and the concept of civilization felt like something I'd read about in a history book. The paved road had given way to dirt, then the dirt road had given way to what I can only describe as a suggestion of a path. And now we were bouncing along something that looked like it had been carved out by a drunk moose with boundary issues. Tara was gripping the door handle so hard her knuckles had gone white. Mr. Whiskers had stopped yowling and had moved on to what I can only describe as existential despair, just sitting in his carrier making these low, mournful sounds that perfectly captured how I felt about this whole situation. Every time we hit a bump, which was approximately every 3 seconds, our bags would shift in the back and something would rattle, and I'd think, this is it. This is how I die. Not from mysterious criminals, but from a truck accident in the Colorado wilderness because I trusted a man named Daniel who looked like he ate nails for breakfast. So, I said, because apparently I can't shut up even when silence would be the smarter option. How much further to this mysterious location? Are we going to Canada? Because I didn't bring my passport, and I feel like that's going to be a problem at the border. Another mile, Daniel said, his eyes never leaving the excuse for a road in front of us. A mile? In this terrain, that's like another hour of my life I'll never get back. 45 minutes. Oh well, that's so much better. Really appreciate the optimism. Tara kicked the back of my seat. Aaron, maybe let the man who's apparently saving our lives concentrate on driving. She had a point. I shut up and focused on not throwing up as the truck navigated what I'm pretty sure was just a vertical cliff with delusions of being a road. Finally, after what felt like 17 years, but was probably actually 47 minutes, Daniel had underestimated, which felt very on-brand for this whole experience. We rounded a bend, and a cabin came into view. And okay, I'll admit, it was kind of beautiful in that serial killer's vacation home sort of way. The cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by pine trees, so tall they looked like they were trying to high-five God. It was made of logs, the real deal, with a stone chimney and a wraparound porch that had probably seen better days. Smoke was coming from the chimney, which meant either someone was home or we were about to walk into a very awkward situation with squatters. The whole scene looked like something from a postcard titled Remote Mountain Living, for when you've really screwed up your life. Daniel parked the truck and killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. No traffic, no sirens, No sounds of urban life. Just wind in the trees and birds doing their bird thing, completely oblivious to the human drama unfolding below them. Home sweet home, Daniel said, climbing out. I grabbed Mr. Whiskers' carrier while Tara got our bags, and we followed Daniel up the porch steps. The wood creaked under our feet, and I noticed there were security cameras, small, discreet, but definitely there, mounted in the corners. Also, the windows had what looked like reinforced frames, and was that bulletproof glass? Hard to tell, but knowing what I knew now, probably. Daniel unlocked the door, 3 different locks. I counted, which seemed excessive until I remembered people wanted us dead, and gestured us inside. The interior was not what I expected. From the outside, it looked like a cozy mountain retreat where you drink hot chocolate and read books by the fireplace. On the inside, it looked like someone had combined a government bunker with a conspiracy theorist's wet dream. The main room was open concept, living area, kitchen, all in one space. But that's where the normal ended. One entire wall was covered with maps, photographs, and documents connected by red string like we'd walked into the world's most intense true crime podcast. There was a massive desk in the corner with not 1, not 2, but 4 computer monitors, all displaying what looked like encrypted data or surveillance footage. Filing cabinets lined another wall, and, oh yeah, there was a gun safe in the corner that was roughly the size of my first apartment. Well, I said, setting down Mr. Whiskers' carrier and looking around. This is exactly as comforting as I'd hoped it would be. Really feeling the safe house vibes. Very homey. I especially love what you've done with the wall of paranoia over there. Daniel ignored me and started turning on equipment. Computers hummed to life, monitors glowed, and I swear I heard what sounded like a server farm spinning up somewhere in the back of the cabin. Tara was standing frozen in the doorway, taking it all in. This is insane, she whispered. This is absolutely insane. Yep, I agreed. We've officially crossed over from Weird Weekend into needs its own Netflix series. Daniel turned to face us, and his expression was serious. Like, I'm about to tell you something that will fundamentally change your understanding of reality serious. You need to understand what you're up against. The network Rowan was investigating. It's not just money laundering. It's a criminal enterprise that spans continents, involves some of the most powerful people in the world, and has resources that would make most governments jealous. They've killed people for less than what you know. Great, I said. Love that for us. Really excited about our immediate future. You have 2 options. Daniel pulled out a chair and sat down, gesturing for us to do the same. We did, mostly because my legs felt like they might give out. Option 1. I help you disappear. New identities, new lives, witness protection. You'd have to leave everything behind. Friends, family, careers, all of it. You'd spend the rest of your lives looking over your shoulders, never knowing if they'd found you. But you'd be alive. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air thicker. Tara's hand found mine under the table, her fingers cold and trembling. And option 2? She asked quietly. Option 2 is you help us expose them. Rowan gathered evidence for 3 years, but he can't use it. He's burned, compromised. But you? Daniel looked at Tara. You're a legitimate employee who witnessed something you shouldn't have. With your testimony and the evidence we've gathered, we can build a case that would bring down the entire network. Politicians, bankers, CEOs, all of them. And if we do that, I asked, though I already knew the answer, then you paint an even bigger target on your backs. They'll come after you with everything they have. We'd have to move fast, get everything to the right people before they can stop us. It's dangerous, possibly suicidal, but it would end this. Not just for you, but for everyone they've hurt. Tara was crying now, silent tears running down her face. I just wanted to work in finance. I just wanted a normal life. How did we get here? Wrong place, wrong time. Daniel said, not unkindly. Story of a lot of people's lives. I looked at my wife. This woman I'd married 5 years ago in a ceremony where the biggest drama was whether we should have chicken or fish for the main course. She looked terrified, exhausted, completely out of her depth. Just like me. What do you think? I asked her. I think I'm scared. Yeah, me too. I squeezed her hand. But here's the thing. If we run forever. We become different people. We lose everything that makes us, us. And those bastards who did this, they just keep doing it to other people. So you want to fight? She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I want to not spend the rest of my life eating gas station sandwiches in Nebraska under the name Gerald Peterson or whatever witness protection decides to call me. I tried to smile, tried to inject some of my usual sarcasm into the moment. Besides, option 1 is boring anonymity. Option 2 is possibly getting shot, but at least it's interesting. Let's go with door number 2, Bob. She didn't laugh. Daniel didn't either. Seriously, tough crowd. But after a long moment, Tara nodded. Okay, we help. We expose them. We end this. Daniel stood up, and for the first time since we'd met him, he almost smiled. Then we've got work to do. First things first, you both need to rest. There's a bedroom upstairs, bathroom down the hall. We'll start planning tomorrow. As Tara and I headed upstairs with our bags and our traumatized cat, I couldn't help thinking that we'd just made either the bravest or stupidest decision of our lives. Probably stupid, but hey, at least it wouldn't be boring. I slept like absolute garbage, which was saying something because I can usually sleep through anything. Fire alarms, earthquakes. That one time our upstairs neighbor decided to practice tap dancing at 3 in the morning. But apparently, my brain drew the line at sleeping peacefully while hiding from a global criminal conspiracy in a mountain cabin that looks like it was decorated by the Unabomber's interior designer. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that black SUV sitting outside our apartment. Every creak of the cabin made me jump. And Mr. Whiskers, bless his furry little heart, decided that this traumatic experience was the perfect time to express his feelings by sitting on my chest at 4 in the morning and screaming directly into my face. Cats are wonderful creatures. Really, just delightful. Tara didn't sleep much either. I could tell from the way she was lying perfectly still, breathing in that deliberate pattern people use when they're trying to convince themselves they're asleep, but are actually cataloging every terrible decision that led them to this moment. Around 6 a.m., we both gave up the pretense and stumbled downstairs to find Daniel already awake, because of course he was, sitting at his wall of computers drinking coffee that smelled like it could strip paint. "Morning," he said, not looking up from whatever screen he was monitoring. "Coffee's in the pot. You're gonna need it." I poured 2 cups, handed one to Tara, and took a sip of mine. It tasted like Satan's bathwater filtered through burned toast, but it was caffeinated, so I wasn't complaining. Tara took one sip, made a face like she'd just licked a battery, and set her cup down. "So," I said, leaning against the kitchen counter, "what's on the agenda today? Target practice? Wilderness survival training? Maybe a nice therapeutic session where we all talk about our feelings?" Daniel finally looked up. "Better. I'm going to show you why Rowan risked everything to get you out of Chicago." He stood up and walked over to one of the filing cabinets, unlocking it with a key he wore on a chain around his neck, because apparently we were living in a spy movie now and everyone needed dramatic accessories. From the drawer, he pulled out a small metal case, the kind you'd use to protect important documents or, I don't know, evidence that could bring down the government. Inside the case was a flash drive. Just a regular flash drive, the kind you could buy at any electronics store for like $10. It was almost funny how something so small and ordinary could contain information important enough to get people killed. Almost funny. Not actually funny. Nothing about this situation was funny, but my brain keeps trying to find humor because the alternative is a complete psychological breakdown, and I'd like to postpone that for at least another few days. Daniel plugged the flash drive into one of his computers, typed in what looked like 17 different passwords, and then gestured for us to come closer. Tara and I crowded around the monitor, coffee cups in hand, looking like the world's most anxious IT department. "Rowan recorded this 2 weeks ago," Daniel said quietly, "right before he went dark." He hit play, and the screen filled with Rowan Hargrove's face. Except this wasn't the cold, intimidating boss I'd met at the party. This version of Rowan looked like he'd been through hell and back. Bruised, disheveled, with a cut above his left eye that had scabbed over badly. His usually perfect hair was a mess, his tie was gone, and his white shirt had what looked suspiciously like blood on the collar. He was sitting in what appeared to be a dingy hotel room, the kind of place you pay cash for and don't ask questions. "If you're watching this," Rowan's voice came through the speakers, rough and tired. "Then they found me. But not you. Good. That means Daniel got you out." He paused, rubbing his face with hands that shook slightly. "Aaron, Tara, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this." You deserve better than to be running for your lives, because I made enemies of very dangerous people. Tara's hand found mine, gripping tight enough to cut off circulation. I didn't pull away. Rowan continued. 3 years ago, Daniel and I uncovered a money laundering operation running through multiple investment firms. At first, we thought it was just organized crime, drug cartels using legitimate businesses to clean their money. But the deeper we dug, the bigger it got. It wasn't just cartels. It was politicians, CEOs, international corporations. We found billions, and I mean billions with AB, moving through shell companies, offshore accounts, phantom investments. He pulled out a stack of papers, holding them up to the camera. Even through the video, I could see columns of numbers, account numbers, names I vaguely recognized from the news. The network is run by Senator Victor Harland. I actually choked on my coffee. Like, full-on coughing fit, spraying expensive-looking computer equipment with Satan's bathwater while Tara pounded on my back. Senator Victor Harland. The guy who was on TV every other week preaching about American values and draining the swamp and fighting corruption. The same guy who'd built his entire political career on being Mr. Clean, the politician who supposedly couldn't be bought. That Victor Harland. You've got to be kidding me. I wheezed, still trying to breathe properly. Keep watching, Daniel said grimly. On screen, Rowan was still talking. Harlan uses his position to facilitate illegal financial transactions while maintaining perfect deniability. He's got people in the FBI, the Justice Department, even the IRS protecting him. Anyone who gets close to exposing him ends up dead, discredited, or disappeared. Daniel and I tried to go through official channels, but every time we filed a report, it vanished. Every witness we found either recanted or vanished. We realized the corruption went so deep that the system couldn't fix itself. Rowan leaned closer to the camera, his eyes intense. That's why I took the job at Stratton Financial. I knew they were part of the network. I spent 3 years gathering evidence, documenting transactions, building an airtight case. And then Tara walked into my office at exactly the wrong time and saw exactly the wrong email. Tara made a small sound next to me, something between a sob and a laugh. I ruined everything. No, Daniel said firmly. You're the only reason this might actually work. Rowan's testimony is compromised. He gathered evidence illegally, went off the books. But you're a legitimate witness who stumbled onto information through no fault of your own. With your testimony and Rowan's evidence, we can build a case that will actually hold up in court. On the video, Rowan was wrapping up. If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. But you did. And that means there's still a chance to stop them. He looked directly into the camera, and I swear it felt like he was looking right at me. Aaron, take care of Tara. And Tara, you're stronger than you think. You always have been. Daniel will help you finish what we started. Trust him. Trust each other. And whatever you do, don't. The video cut off abruptly, mid-sentence, like someone had pulled the plug. The screen went black. What happened? Tara asked. Why did it stop? That's all he recorded, Daniel said. Or all he had time to record before. He didn't finish that sentence. He didn't have to. I stood there, staring at the blank screen, trying to process what I'd just watched. Senator Victor Harland. The guy whose campaign posters were probably still up in half the suburbs in America. The guy who shook hands with foreign dignitaries and gave speeches about integrity. That guy was running a global criminal empire. So what you're telling me, I said slowly, is that we're up against a United States senator with unlimited resources, connections in every government agency, and a track record of making people disappear. That's what we're up against. Yes, Daniel said simply. And you think we can beat him? I think we have to try. I was about to respond, probably with something sarcastic about our chances of survival, which I'd mentally calculated at somewhere around Snowball in hell, when the entire cabin shook. Not like an earthquake, more like something had hit the side of the building hard enough to rattle the windows. Then came the gunfire. The sound was unmistakable, sharp cracks that punched through the morning quiet like the world's most aggressive alarm clock. Glass shattered somewhere, wood splintered, and my brain, which had been running on anxiety and bad coffee, suddenly kicked into pure survival mode. Down, Daniel shouted, diving behind the desk and pulling out. Oh God, he was pulling out an actual assault rifle from somewhere. Where had that been? Had he been sitting on it? They found us. Tara screamed. I grabbed her and pulled us both behind the couch, which offered exactly zero protection against bullets, but made me feel slightly less exposed. More gunfire erupted outside, multiple shooters, from the sound of it, coming from different directions. How did they find us? Tara was yelling, her voice high with panic. Doesn't matter. Daniel returned fire through a window, and the noise in the enclosed space was deafening. Trapdoor? Kitchen floor. Go. I looked at Tara, then at the kitchen, then back at Tara. We have to move. I can't. Yes, you can. I grabbed her hand, and we crawled. Actually crawled on our stomachs like we were in some kind of horrible military training exercise, across the floor, while bullets punched holes in the walls above us. I could hear them whizzing past, could smell gunpowder and fear in my own sweat. We made it to the kitchen, somehow, miraculously, and I found the trapdoor Daniel had mentioned. It was hidden under a rug, because of course it was. I yanked it open to reveal a ladder leading down into darkness. Go. I shoved Tara toward it. Go, go, go. She climbed down, moving fast, and I followed right behind her, pulling the trapdoor shut just as something exploded above us. The sound was massive, world-ending, and the whole cabin shook like it was trying to tear itself apart. Then, silence. Except for my heart, which was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. We were in some kind of bunker beneath the cabin, lit by a single emergency light that cast everything in sickly yellow. There was another ladder, communication equipment, boxes of supplies, and a phone, an emergency landline, mounted on the wall. It started ringing. I stared at it for approximately 3 seconds, then grabbed the receiver with shaking hands. Hello. Rowan's voice came through, weak, strained, but definitely alive. Aaron, you made it to the bunker. Good, good. Daniel, still up there. There was an explosion. A pause. Then, you did well, Aaron. Better than I expected. But this isn't over. Everything you need is down there. Access codes, evidence files, contact information for people who can help. You have 2 hours before they regroup and search the property. Use them wisely. 2 hours. I'd spent longer waiting for a pizza. Rowan, what do we? But the line was already dead. Above us, I could hear footsteps. Voices. People searching the ruins of the cabin. Tara looked at me, her face pale in the emergency lighting. What do we do? I had absolutely no idea. So here's something they don't tell you in action movies. Bunkers are extremely claustrophobic when you're actually hiding in one for your life. In the movies, bunkers are these cool underground lairs with leather chairs and mahogany desks where the good guys plot their revenge while drinking expensive scotch. In reality, this bunker was a concrete box that smelled like mildew and fear, barely big enough for 2 people and definitely not designed for comfort. The emergency light flickered occasionally just to add to the ambience, casting shadows that made every box of supplies look like a crouching assassin waiting to murder us. Tara and I huddled in the corner, trying to breathe quietly, as if the people upstairs hunting us had superhuman hearing and could detect our existence through several feet of concrete and terror. Above us, we could hear them moving around, boots crunching on debris, voices shouting to each other in that clipped, professional way that suggested these weren't random thugs. These were trained operatives, the kind of people who got paid very well to make other people very dead. Are they gone? Tara whispered, her voice barely audible. Do I look like I have X-ray vision? I whispered back. I can barely see you in this lighting, let alone what's happening through a concrete ceiling. This isn't the time for sarcasm, Aaron. When is it the time? Because I've got a whole stockpile saved up and I need to use it before I have a complete nervous breakdown. She grabbed my hand, squeezed it hard enough that I thought she might break a finger. I'm scared. Yeah, I admitted, abandoning the sarcasm for a moment of brutal honesty. Me too. Like, really scared. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at about a 47. We sat there in the semi-darkness, listening to the sounds of destruction above us. Someone was definitely searching the cabin. We could hear furniture being overturned, things being smashed, the methodical progression of people who knew what they were doing and weren't in any particular hurry. These weren't panicked amateurs. These were professionals conducting a professional search, which somehow made it so much worse. My mind was racing through worst-case scenarios like a depressing slideshow. What if they found the trapdoor? What if Daniel was dead? What if this bunker was just delaying the inevitable and we were trapped down here like rats in a very small, very concrete barrel? What if Mr. Whiskers was okay? Wait, where was Mr. Whiskers? Had we left him upstairs? Oh God, had our cat just become a casualty of international conspiracy? That thought somehow hit harder than the fear of my own death. We'd survived this long just to let our cat die in a shootout. That was going on my tombstone. Here lies Aaron Blake. Failed to protect his cat. 0 stars. Do you hear that? Tara's voice pulled me out of my spiral of cat-related guilt. I listened. The sounds from above had changed. Less searching, more retreating. Boots moving toward what I assumed was the door. Engines starting outside. The distinctive sound of vehicles pulling away. Are they leaving? I asked, hardly daring to believe it. Maybe they think we're dead. Maybe they think we escaped. Maybe. The sound of the trapdoor opening cut her off. Both of us froze, staring up at the square of light that had suddenly appeared above us. This was it. They'd found us. We were about to die in a bunker in Colorado, and I hadn't even finished the Doritos I'd packed. But the face that appeared in the opening wasn't a masked assassin. It was Daniel. Well, sort of Daniel. This version of Daniel looked like he'd gone 10 rounds with a wood chipper and lost. His face was covered in soot and what was definitely blood. Lots of blood. His left arm hung at an odd angle, and when he climbed down the ladder, he moved like every muscle in his body was screaming at him to stop. Daniel. Tara jumped up. Oh my God, you're alive. Barely, he grunted, reaching the bottom of the ladder and immediately leaning against the wall like it was the only thing keeping him upright. They're gone. Pulled back. Probably think they got us in the explosion. You're hurt, I said, stating the incredibly obvious because apparently that's what I do in crisis situations. Yeah, I noticed. Despite everything, there was a hint of dry humor in his voice. Caught some shrapnel when they hit the propane tank. Could be worse. How could it possibly be worse? Tara asked. We could be dead. He pushed off from the wall, wincing. Which we will be if we don't move fast. They'll regroup, realize they didn't find bodies, come back with more people. We've got maybe 2 hours. Rowan told you. Yeah, I said. 2 hours. He said everything we need is down here. Daniel nodded, then moved to the far end of the bunker where I'd noticed boxes earlier. He opened one, revealing what looked like every spy's dream survival kit. Passports, cash in multiple currencies, burner phones, USB drives, and, was that a grenade? Why was there a grenade? Who needs a grenade in their emergency bunker supplies? But Daniel ignored all of that and went straight for a laptop tucked in a protective case. He pulled it out, set it on the small metal table bolted to the floor, and powered it on. The screen glowed to life, illuminating his battered face in harsh blue light. Rowan and I spent 3 years collecting evidence, Daniel said, typing one-handed while his injured arm hung useless at his side. Bank records, wire transfer logs, emails, recorded conversations, photographs. Everything needed to prove Senator Harlan's involvement in the money laundering network. It's all compiled, organized, ready to go. Ready to go where? I asked. Daniel reached into his pocket, the motion clearly painful, and pulled out a flash drive. It was labeled in neat handwriting, final proof. He plugged it into the laptop, and folders started appearing on screen. Hundreds of them. Maybe thousands. Years of work, condensed into digital files. We've had this ready for months, Daniel continued, his voice strained. Waiting for the right moment, the right way to release it without getting ourselves killed in the process. The network's too powerful to just hand this to one journalist or one agency. They'd bury it, kill whoever had it, make it disappear like it never existed. So what's the plan? Tara asked, leaning over to look at the screen. Daniel opened a program I didn't recognize, something that looked like it had been custom-built by someone who really understood encryption and distribution networks. On the screen, a single button appeared, big and red and impossible to miss. Below it, white text. Press Enter to release data globally. This program, Daniel explained, will simultaneously upload everything to multiple news organizations, law enforcement agencies, and WikiLeaks-style platforms around the world. FBI, Interpol, The Washington Post, The New York Times, Reuters, The Guardian, Al Jazeera, everyone gets it at once. Within minutes, this information will be so widely distributed that there's no way to contain it. I stared at the button. You're saying we could end this right now? Just press Enter, and it's over. Press Enter, and you start a war, Daniel corrected. A legal war, a media war, a political war. Senator Harlan will fight back with everything he has. His lawyers, his connections, his money. People will try to discredit the evidence, call it fake news, conspiracy theories. It'll be ugly. But it'll be out there, Tara said softly. The truth will be out there. Yes. Tara looked at me. Her face was smudged with dirt. Her hair was a mess, and she looked absolutely exhausted. But her eyes were clear, determined. Should we? I thought about our apartment in Chicago. Our normal life. The boring routine we'd had just 2 days ago. I thought about Rowan, beaten and bloody, recording that video knowing he might not survive. I thought about Daniel, risking everything to finish what they'd started. And I thought about all the other people who'd been hurt by Harlan's network, the victims we'd never meet, the lives destroyed by corruption and greed. I grinned, an actual grin, because sometimes you have to laugh at the absurdity of life or you'll cry. Honey, if this doesn't crash the internet, nothing will. I reached over and hit enter. The laptop screen erupted in activity. Progress bars filled. Status messages appeared and disappeared. FBI connected. Interpol connected. Reuters connected. New York Times connected. Somewhere across the world, in offices and newsrooms and law enforcement agencies, people were receiving the biggest data dump of their careers. Corrupt politicians were about to start sweating through their designer suits. Lawyers were about to have very bad mornings. And Senator Victor Harlan's perfect facade was about to crack wide open. The emergency phone rang again. Daniel grabbed it, listened for a moment, then held it out to me. It's Rowan. I took the phone. Hello. You did it. Rowan's voice was faint, weak, like he was speaking from very far away. You ended what I couldn't. The files are spreading. I'm watching the news feeds. It's everywhere. You did it, Aaron. You and Tara. You saved so many people. Rowan, where are you? Are you okay? A long pause. Too long. Doesn't matter now. Just tell Tara I'm sorry. Tell her she was the best analyst I ever had. Tell her. The line went silent. Not like he'd hung up. Silent like the connection had been severed. Permanently. I stood there in the bunker, holding a dead phone, and wondered if I should put accidental whistleblower on my resume. I stood there holding a dead phone like an idiot, my brain trying to process the fact that Rowan Hargrove, the man who'd started this whole insane chain of events by handing me an envelope at a party that felt like it happened 17 years ago, but was actually just 2 days, was probably dead. Not probably, in the optimistic sense where there's still a chance. Probably, in the sense that his voice had faded out mid-sentence like someone had literally unplugged him from existence. And that's generally not a great sign for someone's continued survival. Aaron. Tara's voice pulled me back. What did he say? I set the phone down carefully, like it might shatter if I moved too fast. He said we did it. That the files are everywhere. And then, I couldn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. The look on Tara's face said she understood. Daniel was already back at the laptop, his good hand flying across the keyboard while his injured arm dangled uselessly. Despite the blood and the soot and the fact that he looked like he'd been hit by a truck full of explosions, he was grinning. Actually grinning. He wasn't kidding. Look at this. Tara and I crowded around the screen, and what I saw made my brain do that thing where it tries to process too much information at once and just kind of gives up. The laptop was displaying multiple news sites simultaneously, and every single one was erupting with breaking news alerts like someone had set off a bomb made of journalism. Breaking. Massive data leak implicates Senator Harlan in money laundering scheme. Senator Harlan under investigation after anonymous document dump. Financial records link prominent politicians to international crime network. CNN had already interrupted their regular programming. I could see Anderson Cooper's face on one of the live feeds, looking like someone had just told him Santa Claus was real, but also running a drug cartel. The children at the bottom of the screen scrolled past. Developing story. Billions in illegal transactions allegedly tied to U.S. Senator. Holy crap, I whispered. We actually did it. We actually broke the internet. Not just the internet, Daniel said, clicking through different tabs. Look, the FBI's already issued a statement saying they're launching an investigation. Interpol's coordinating with multiple countries. The Justice Department is, Jesus, they're calling for an emergency congressional hearing. Tara sank down onto the floor, her back against the concrete wall, looking like someone had physically removed all the energy from her body. This is real. This is actually happening. We just exposed a United States senator. We exposed a criminal, I corrected, sitting down next to her, who just happened to have really good PR and a nice suit. On the laptop screen, footage was already emerging. News helicopters circling Senator Harlan's estate in Virginia. FBI agents and windbreakers carrying boxes out of what looked like his campaign headquarters. His face, that perfectly groomed, perpetually confident face that had smiled from campaign posters and Sunday morning talk shows, now looking decidedly less confident as he was surrounded by lawyers and federal agents. Statement from Senator Harlan's office. Daniel read aloud from one of the news sites. These allegations are completely false and part of a coordinated attack by political enemies. The senator looks forward to clearing his name and pursuing legal action against those responsible for this malicious smear campaign. He snorted. Good luck with that, buddy. Pretty hard to call it a smear campaign when we've got 3 years of bank records. Twitter, or X, or whatever we were calling it this week, was having a complete meltdown. Hashtag Harlan Scandal was trending #1 worldwide. Political pundits were having existential crises live on camera. Memes were already appearing. Someone had photoshopped Harlan's face onto the Titanic with the caption, "His campaign, right now." Another showed him as the surprised Pikachu meme. The internet was doing what the internet does best, taking tragedy and human suffering and turning it into content. There, Tara said suddenly, pointing at the screen. Stratton Financial. Sure enough, news vans were already parked outside her old office building. The company's CEO was being escorted out by federal agents. The ticker on CNBC showed Stratton's stock price in freefall, dropping so fast it looked like someone had thrown it off a cliff. Employees were streaming out of the building, probably wondering if they'd have jobs by the end of the day. I spotted a few faces I recognized from the party, the one where this all started, back when my biggest concern was whether I'd eaten too many shrimp skewers. All those people, Tara said quietly. They didn't do anything wrong. They just worked there. And now their company is probably going to collapse, and they'll lose their jobs, and they were working for a criminal enterprise, Daniel interrupted, not unkindly. Even if they didn't know it. Sometimes innocent people get caught in the crossfire. It's not fair, but it's better than letting Harlan keep destroying lives. Is it though, she asked. How do we know the cure isn't worse than the disease? Because the disease was killing people, I said. Real people. Rowan. All the witnesses who disappeared. How many others we don't even know about? I took her hand. This sucks. It's messy and complicated, and a lot of innocent people are going to have really bad months. But Harlan's network was going to keep hurting people forever if nobody stopped it. She nodded, but she didn't look convinced. Just tired. We all were. Daniel pulled up another window. This one showing some kind of secure messaging system. Rowan's contacts are coming through. Federal prosecutors who've been waiting for evidence like this. Journalists who've been investigating Harlan for years but couldn't prove anything. Even some senators, the ones who aren't on Harlan's payroll, calling for his resignation. Will he go to prison? I asked. If there's any justice in the world? Yes. But guys like Harlan have resources. Best lawyers money can buy. Friends in high places. He'll fight this with everything he's got. Daniel closed the laptop, wincing as the movement jostled his injured arm. But even if he somehow avoids prison, his career is over. His reputation is destroyed. The network is exposed. That's the important part. The emergency light flickered again, and in the moment of semi-darkness, I had a weird flash of perspective. 48 hours ago, I'd been a handyman living a boring, comfortable life. I complained about traffic and expensive coffee and my neighbor's loud music. I thought those were problems. Now I was sitting in an underground bunker, having just exposed a massive criminal conspiracy, while the world literally changed above our heads. What happens now? Tara asked. Do we just go home? Go back to our lives? Can't go back to Chicago, Daniel said. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You're the primary witnesses now. Once people figure out where the leak came from, and they will, you'll need protection. FBI witness security, probably. New identities, new location, the whole package. So option 1 after all, I said bitterly. Disappear forever. Not forever. Just until the trials are done, the convictions are secured. Could be months. Could be years. Daniel stood up slowly, every movement clearly painful. But you'll be alive. And you'll have done something that matters. Most people can't say that. Above us, I could hear new sounds. Not boots or guns, but helicopter rotors. News choppers, probably, circling the area. Within hours, this location would be swarming with reporters, federal agents, curiosity seekers. We needed to move. We should go, Daniel said, confirming my thoughts. I've got a truck stashed about 2 miles from here. Different vehicle, clean plates. We can make it to a federal facility in Denver, get you into protective custody. And you? Tara asked. He smiled, or tried to. It came out as more of a grimace. I need a hospital. Pretty sure this arm's broken. Maybe a few ribs too. But first, I need to make sure you two are safe. That's what Rowan would have wanted. We gathered what we needed from the bunker: cash, new phones, the USB drives with backup copies of everything. Daniel had us change clothes, burn our old ones in a small incinerator he apparently kept down here, because of course he did. We looked different now. Not much, but enough that casual observation might miss us. As we climbed back up the ladder into what remained of the cabin, walls blown out, furniture destroyed, the whole place looking like it had been visited by a very angry tornado, I took one last look around. This was where we'd made the decision that changed everything, where we'd pressed enter and set the world on fire. Hey, I said to Tara as we picked our way through the debris. For what it's worth, I'm glad we did it. She looked at me, exhausted and scared and covered in dust. Ask me again in a year when we're living under fake names in Nebraska. At least we'll have each other. And Mr. Whiskers. Oh my God, Mr. Whiskers. She looked around frantically. Where is he? Aaron, we left him. A familiar meow came from under what used to be the couch. Our indestructible orange cat emerged from the wreckage, somehow completely fine, looking annoyed that his nap had been interrupted by international conspiracy and explosions. I picked him up, and he started purring. Well, I said, at least someone's having a good day. By sunrise 3 weeks later, every news station on Earth was still on fire. Senator Harland arrested. Global corruption network exposed. FBI seizes billions in laundered assets. My personal favorite headline came from some British tabloid. American senator's empire crumbles faster than his hairpiece. They weren't wrong. Harland's perfect hair had definitely looked less perfect in his mugshot, which became the second most shared image on the internet right after that photo of a cat wearing sunglasses. Daniel helped us relocate to a safe place, a quiet cabin in Montana this time, because apparently cabins were just our life now. The government offered us witness protection with all the bells and whistles. New identities, relocation assistance, the works. But here's the thing about fake identities. They come with fake social security numbers, fake histories, and the very real possibility of accidentally responding to the wrong name at a coffee shop and blowing your entire cover because you forgot you're supposed to be Jennifer Martinez now instead of Tara Blake. Can we at least keep our frequent flyer miles? I'd asked the very serious FBI agent handling our case. She did not laugh. Nobody in the FBI laughs at my jokes, which I think says more about them than it does about my comedy skills. In the end, we negotiated. We'd testify at the trials, and there were going to be many, many trials, but we wouldn't completely disappear. We'd stay in Montana under our real names, with security monitoring and regular check-ins, but we'd still be us. It wasn't perfect, but it was better than spending the rest of our lives pretending to be Gerald and Susan Peterson from Omaha. The trials were exactly as brutal as everyone predicted. Harland's lawyers fought like rabid wolverines in expensive suits, trying to discredit every piece of evidence, every witness, every document. They claimed the data was fabricated, that we were paid plants, that the whole thing was a political hit job funded by Harland's enemies. The media circus was insane. Camera crews following us to the grocery store, reporters shouting questions while we pumped gas, conspiracy theorists on the internet deciding we were either heroes or CIA operatives or lizard people, depending on which rabbit hole they'd fallen down that week. But the evidence was too solid. 3 years of meticulous documentation doesn't lie, no matter how many lawyers you throw at it. Bank records don't care about spin. Wire transfers don't have political affiliations. One by one, the dominoes fell. Harland was convicted on 14 counts of money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy. He got 25 years. His associates got various sentences ranging from probation to life imprisonment, depending on how deeply they'd been involved and how good their lawyers were. Stratton Financial collapsed, just like Tara predicted. The company was liquidated, assets seized, employees scattered to other firms or different careers entirely. Some of them probably still curse our names. I get it. We destroyed their comfortable ignorance. But comfortable ignorance built on criminal foundations isn't really comfort. It's just delayed consequences. Weeks became months. The media frenzy eventually calmed down because the world's attention span is roughly equivalent to a goldfish on espresso. New scandals emerged, new outrage cycles began, and slowly, very slowly, people stopped recognizing us at Walmart. One morning in our Montana cabin, which was actually pretty nice, with real Wi-Fi this time and a view that didn't make me feel like I was about to be murdered, Tara looked at me over coffee that didn't taste like Satan's bathwater and asked softly, "Do you think it's really over?" I considered the question seriously. Daniel was recovering well, his arm healing, talking about maybe writing a book about the whole experience. Rowan was gone, but his sacrifice had meant something. The network was broken, the corruption exposed. Harland was in federal prison, probably missing his perfect hair products. "If someone shows up with another envelope," I said, "I'm moving to Mars. Elon's got those rockets now, right? I'll take my chances with the aliens." She laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. It was the best sound I'd ever heard, better than any victory or vindication or news headline. I kissed her forehead and said, "We're not heroes, you know. We're just two idiots who pressed enter at the right time." "Is that really all courage is?" she asked. "Maybe," I said. "Maybe courage is just doing the right thing when you don't have the manual, when you're scared, when everything tells you to run the other way. Maybe it's ordering pizza while hiding in a bunker. Maybe it's choosing to fight instead of hide. I don't know. I'm still just a handyman who knows way too much about international conspiracy now." She smiled. "Well, at least we've got a story for parties." "Yeah, about that. I'm never going to another office party again. Ever. Those things are dangerous. My name is Aaron Blake, and if your wife's boss ever gives you an envelope at a party, do yourself a favor. Don't open it. Just run. Run fast, run far, and whatever you do, don't eat all the shrimp skewers on your way out. You'll need your strength for what comes next."